What's going on, guys? This is Rob. If you guys enjoy my content, make sure you hit the subscribe button and make sure you hit that little bell so you never miss out on my sexy voice. Okay, so we are finally picking back up with the events of Earth X, and we basically wrap it up. We are finished with Earth X at the end of this video, and it's been one heck of a ride. I mean, honestly, this was just a fill-in story until we could get close enough to continue our videos on like Thanos and, you know, the events leading into like Infinity Gauntlet and so on and so forth. I'm still on the fence about whether or not I'm gonna do Universe X and Paradise X. But with Earth X, we basically pick up following the arrival of Galactus. And this was the huge revelation that had basically come out of the events of Earth X, that all the superheroes that existed on Earth, the entire history of the Earth, that it was all basically preordained, or at least as close to preordained as you can get. That the Celestials essentially travel around from planet to planet. They plant their seed inside of a planet so that it can give birth to a new Celestial. And in order to make sure that the planet stays safe, the Celestials in turn modify the genes of whatever citizens or whatever, you know, species is the dominant species on that planet so that they will develop superpowers. And the idea is that, like any species trying to maintain itself, trying to ensure its own survival, they'll face off against any external threat that would try to destroy the world, all the while never realizing that they're actually protecting a celestial seed. What this means is that when the celestial seed is born, the Earth will be destroyed. Now, something that I want you guys to notice here is that Galactus begins the process of constructing his world-devouring device. Where the Celestials attempt to try to stop Galactus, it's really more of like putting up force fields, things like that, but the Celestials don't actually try to kill Galactus, or at least they don't initially. And the reason for this is, remember, it's all about balance. In Earth X, Galactus basically travels around the cosmos and consumes life-sustaining planets, or planets capable of supporting life, because that's where the Celestials will plant their seeds. And it's just designed to basically keep the celestial population from running out of control, from basically dominating the entirety of an individual universe. And so because of the fact that Galactus is going through and essentially destroying the celestial seed inside of the planet, the Celestials in turn begin to start to launch an attack against Galactus. Now, there are a couple things that I want you guys to also notice too. For example, you've got the Silver Surfer, but you also have Shallabal. Now, Shallabal, of course, is basically the girlfriend of Norrin Radd before he became the Silver Surfer, and he had essentially sacrificed his life and became the Silver Surfer in order to spare Zenn-La, his home planet. But again, Earth X feeds into the nature of Galactus and the Celestials. And so what this meant is Galactus didn't just show up to Zenn-La one day for the purpose of just consuming it because he was just really, really hungry one day. It was basically the whole idea that he showed up here because there was a celestial seed inside Zenn-La. And so when the Silver Surfer said, "Fine, spare my planet, I will become your new herald," the result is that that's exactly what happened. Now, of course, Shallabal ended up becoming an equivalent to Silver Surfer, and we're not really told exactly how that happens in this story, but regardless of the scenario, she's basically on par with the Silver Surfer here. And it's cool because the idea of the Celestials finally intervening and beginning the process of trying to basically destroy Galactus and ensure the survival of this celestial seed comes when Galactus destroys one of the Celestials. But something else that I also want you guys to notice here is that Reed is kind of in awe, but he's also harboring a bit of a secret, because where he's sort of analyzing this whole situation, musing to himself, talking to X-51, one of the things he says is that Galactus is a compassionate being. The problem with this is that Reed Richards didn't realize this until it was too late. And when the question is asked, what do you mean by that? Reed says, "I turned Galactus into a star." And what that means is that the Galactus here is not the original Galactus. And that begs the question, who is it? And so that's why this is so cool. That's why I've been dying to do this reveal. I've been dying to do this reveal for so long because it is so amazing. Now, the other half of this is, remember, Loki had basically discovered that the Asgardians are essentially beings who were formless. They were just kind of shape-shifting organisms that existed out there one day. And then when they first encountered humanity viewed them as like Norse gods. And that's where the Asgardians came from. That's why we have Thor and Odin. But the idea that Loki had realized this whole situation, that the Asgardians are not inherently Asgardians, meant that he was able to rally the entire cause, because what he said is, if the humans on Earth die, then we will basically die in our current form. And so because of this, the Asgardians basically intervene and begin the process of jumping into the conflict against the Celestials. But the fact remains, Reed actually takes off from watching the Celestials basically engage in battle with one another and essentially goes back to Medusa, basically saying, look, the whole reason why Inhumans returned to Earth in the first place was to look for the son of Black Bolt and Medusa so they can in turn marry the daughter of Quicksilver and Crystal. The issue is that they've been looking for the son the entire time, but haven't been able to find him. Now, earlier in these videos, we talked about the Black Knight that basically stood alongside Captain Britain, and we didn't know who the Black Knight was, and he was never addressed. That's when we basically learn this is the son of Black Bolt. This is where he's been the entire time. He's been hiding under everyone's nose. He's basically just been perceived as the heir of Captain Britain should Britain ever fall. And it's actually the perfect idea, just hiding in plain sight. But who's ever going to guess that the Black Knight standing alongside Britain's only real remaining superhero is the heir to the Inhuman royal family? So it is pretty smart. Not a great big huge thing, but it's just designed to kind of wrap up the Inhuman plot that was going on with regards to this story. But again, jumping back to Galactus, the cool thing is that the Celestials cannot destroy Galactus. I mean, they could if they wanted to, but it would upset the natural balance of things. And what this means is that if Galactus were to be destroyed by the Celestials in response to the fact that he's been destroying Celestials themselves, then most likely what would happen is you would have like the Living Tribunal appear. And the Living Tribunal would say, this does not work. Galactus represents cosmic balance. Galactus has to exist. And then most likely the Living Tribunal would reconstitute Galactus, and we would be right back at square one again. And so the result is that the cosmic balance is maintained. The Celestials ultimately take off. And even then, it's not a great big huge deal, right? Like, this is one planet in a single solar system, in a singular galaxy, in an infinitely expanding universe. Losing one celestial seed is by no means the end of all things. Earth is essentially irrelevant in the greater cosmos of what is the universe. Because of that, what we end up having is Reed Richards, who travels back to New York and essentially like reaches out to Galactus and basically calls out his name. And this is when we learn Reed was the one who summoned Galactus. And the reason why Reed was able to summon Galactus across the cosmos is because Reed Richards didn't have like a device. He didn't have an artifact. He didn't shout the name Galactus. What he shouted was the name of Franklin. And that's when we find out Franklin Richards is the new Galactus. Now, this is insane. This is cool. But again, this is one of those moments where Marvel kind of built on this later on. Jonathan Hickman doing the whole like, Fantastic Four run, and the idea that like future Franklin Richards powers were equal to the power of Galactus. When they had that huge conversation at the end of the story, and Galactus basically said like, we'll stand at the end of all things. It was kind of predicated on a lot of the Earth X stuff that was done. But the whole idea here is that Franklin doesn't really remember himself being Franklin Richards. He sees himself as Galactus, and he operates as Galactus. Franklin realizes that he was called Franklin, and he finds it kind of strange, but Reed's just kind of like, well, I just called you by the name of my son because, I love my son. But he doesn't really explicitly address Galactus and say, you are Franklin Richards, you are my son. Instead, it's, you just remind me of my son. I mean, it is Franklin, but it is kind of cool that the son of Reed, the reality warping son of Reed, would ascend to the level of godhood, because in truth, it's the most natural evolution for his character, I would imagine. If Galactus were ever destroyed, it would make sense that like Franklin would take his place. But what you end up having is the celestial seed destroyed inside the Earth by Galactus. Galactus just basically takes off, says, we will not see each other again. This will be the end of us. Following this, things actually wrap up pretty quickly. What you end up having is X-51 Machine Man basically realizing the truth behind Uatu the Watcher, that not only was he blinded by Black Bolt in order for Black Bolt to basically hide his actions when he had initially left the planet Earth and given everybody powers through the Terrigen Mist, but what's also been going on is Uatu the Watcher can only really know what's going on Earth by hearing everything that's going on. And so essentially what happens is Machine Man comes along and basically says like, your race was designed for the purpose of watching things, but you guys are apathetic. Over the course of your entire existence, you've watched the Celestials plant seeds in worlds, create life on that world, or meddle with the life on that world, and then in turn watch that world grow, watch those species kind of reach maturity, and then watch the Celestials show up, destroy everything, and then give birth to a new Celestial, and just repeat the same thing time and time again. Your entire existence has been nothing but the sole purpose of just watching things be destroyed. That's kind of the cool thing with Machine Man, because what he says is to do nothing in the face of such evil. That is truly heinous. But notice this, it's almost kind of like, the idea of like good and evil exists here, but in this scenario, I would say it doesn't. I mean, it doesn't make any sense to say like you are evil because of a inherent, natural drive that you as an organism has. The idea of Celestials planting their seeds in a planet and then manipulating the genes of that species in order for them to protect the planet, and then in turn having that planet destroyed when the Celestial is born, that's no more evil than like the wind blowing. They play a role in the universe. They are a fundamental force of the universe. Good and evil don't really apply here. And that's the cool thing, is because what this is designed to hit home at is, despite the fact that X-51 Machine Man has watched all of this happen, and despite the fact that he has all this experience and what it means to like be human and to understand humans, at the end of the day, he's not human, because he's trying to apply human attributes of right and wrong to a situation that doesn't call for it, and it's not applicable. And so because of this, like the whole basis of Machine Man kind of adopting these mentalities and then in turn trying to use them on the Watcher really hits home at the idea that at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, he's no more of a man than he was when he was first created, created. He's just walking the paces. He's just doing what people do. And that's really about it. And so again, for the most part, with the celestial seed being destroyed, society just kind of reverts back to its standard form, in the sense that you still have people who wage war against one another, but because of the fact that there was a common threat that saw the near destruction of all things, that basically people begin to sort of consolidate, come back down, the world begins to return back to a state of normalcy, form and function of organized society begin to come back again. The issue with this is that in the middle of everything, Reed kind of falls asleep or has a dream sequence, and he's suddenly met by Marvell the Kree, who had died quite some time ago, because of course in Earth X he had died of cancer, just like he did in the main Marvel universe. And so what ends up happening is Marvell basically says, everything is about to change. Like everything that you see going on here, none of it's permanent. Everything is about to go absolute belly up. The Celestials were the least of your concerns. Things are about to get a whole lot worse, and I'm here to save everyone. But you basically have to protect me. You have to ensure that I will be reborn into this world, and that this birthing process will go off without a hitch. Now, in truth, he's basically been kind of, resurrected, so to speak, as the child of Kismet and Adam Warlock. And so again, it's kind of cool to know that's going to happen. But what this does is it sets the stage for the events of Universe X and Paradise X, this kind of trilogy of this alternate reality series of stories. They're interesting. I mean, again, I haven't read them in a long time, so I need to go back and read Universe and Paradise. But if you guys are interested in seeing those, let me know down in the comments section. I'm sure a lot of you guys will say yes. But if you guys are new here to Comics Explained, make sure you guys hit the sub button to become part of the Rob Corps. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you drop a like, and I will catch you all later. Peace.